Susan was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and she is also a fourth generation and a second generation. So there's another split here, Chinese American. But her family, she says, have been separated both by the 1882 Exclusion Act and also World War II. Susan's great-grandfather worked on the Northern Pacific Railroad, and her grandfather worked in the lotteries in western Pennsylvania. And her father was 10 years old when he came to the U.S. with his father, but he returned to China in 1939 to support the Chinese war effort as a civilian. Susan's parents met in Burma, and once the Chinese Exclusion Act was repealed in 1943, her mother was among one of the 105 people that are allowed under that annual quota after the Exclusion Act was lifted. And she knows exactly what number, actually, her mother was, so that 105. And so Susan is now retired, living in Maryland. She used to be a medical technologist, and she's been very active in assisting, among other things, reunions of Chinese American World War II veterans. So I'm pleased to introduce you to Susan. Here, thank you. Everyone can hear me? Yeah. Closer? Yeah, I want to make sure. Okay. So Helen Chao Yu. Everything that happens to a person in life molds them into what they are. Especially in this day of political divisiveness, we have to think about what brings a person to where they are in their life. As a Chinese American and now a senior citizen, it took me a long time to realize that what makes me a pain in the behind to some people is probably okay. As for my mother, Helen Chao Yu, she had this knowledge all along. She always knew who she was despite all the barriers she faced. Right now I'm reading the book, Gutsy Women by Hillary and Chelsea Clinton. My mom, who was a lifelong Republican, would say, Susie, do not use Hillary Clinton to talk about me. It's remarkable that on the cover of the Clinton book, Asian American women are doing practice fire drills after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. They are fierce, capable women. The fact of the matter is, all of us are gutsy women, including all the women in this room. And Mom, we are your legacy. Helen was born in Fuxi Village, Taishan, Guangdong Province. Mom did not talk much about her childhood growing up. And when I was young, there was a suitcase full of small pictures that I'd look at occasionally, but I never found them again until 2014 when she passed away at the age of 93. So I can only guess at some of what these pictures show. Looking at some of these pictures of my mother during her younger years in China, it seems like she had a very idyllic life, going to school, enjoying parties, and traveling. Helen took lessons in English and graduated from the Canton College of Arts, learning Chinese brush painting from Professor Wang Zhuanbei, and she had art shows in Canton and Rangoon. We have no pictures of Mom's mom, my grandmother. The story was that my grandfather took a second wife, and the second wife banished my grandmother back to her small village and sent my mother's younger sister away to live with someone else where she was mistreated. Mom had always assumed that her mother had died, and we never knew if somebody told her this or if she just assumed that she had. Eventually, my grandfather sent somebody to find my youngest aunt and bring her home. But Mom did not find out until she was in her 80s that her mom had actually lived. And the person that told her was her older brother. And Mom would be saying to me, Susie, why are you telling everybody these secrets we've kept all these years? And I think it's important to know that she was raised without her mother and mostly by servants, which must have left a huge hole in her heart, maybe that even she didn't realize. The family went to Rangoon, Burma as the Japanese invaded from the north and got close to Canton City. They lived in a semi-protected status in Rangoon with well-to-do relatives until the Japanese invaded from the south. World War II in the China-Burma India theater was relentless, cruel, and devastating for everyone involved. So while you're in Lashio, your fourth uncle wants to introduce you to this guy named Quinn. This guy turns out to be a handsome and dashing Chinese American who falls completely in love with you the first time he sees you. You sense there is something in his warmth and quiet confidence that will sustain you through all your ups and downs, and he courts you for several months. Your family really likes him. You're not really sure, and so how can you say no? The Japanese start to invade from the south, so Helen and her family moved north to Lashio, and my grandfather dies in Rangoon, far from his home in China. Quinn is happy to have Helen in Lashio, and they both get jobs. The Japanese were spotted on April 24th, a few days before their wedding reception, so they have to flee north to China. They have a perilous journey, and their idea is to head towards Chongqing to get Mom a visa. They're separated for several weeks, and they think each other is dead, but then they find each other in Kunming. They spend a year in Guiyang, and then they keep going to Chongqing, where they both get jobs again. Mom at the Central News Agency and Quinn at the Ministry of Transportation. They hear through friends that the Chinese Exclusion Act was repealed and signed into law December 17, 1943. Mom applied for a visa along with Dad's American passport. Then she applied for her Chinese passport. In about a month, Mom was issued visa number 32, of the first 105 Chinese allowed to emigrate from China into the U.S. in 1944 after the repeal. They flew over the hump to the next part of their journey into Bombay, India, where they set sail in the neutral ship Grisham. Oops, I'm going backwards. There's the Grisham. They had stayed with Connie Chung's mother and her 4 children in the same hotel. They set sail July 5th, 1944 from Bombay and arrived in New York City August 5th, 1944. And you can see where it's circled in red that my mom's number 32 of the visa for that year. Take a bus to a blue-collar steel town called Pittsburgh. My dad was beloved by his adopted hometown of Duquesne, which was nearby. They're invited to stay with Quinn's high school principal until they are able to find a small apartment. Quinn was able to get a job with U.S. Steel on the night shift and then go to school at Carnegie Tech during the day. Helen moved to Bakersfield, California for a year to help pay for Quinn's tuition, so she taught Chinese school there. And so here's an article in the local newspaper about them, and I have a large copy there if you want to read it. So if you have this beauty, this talent, this ambition, this drive, what do you do with it? Being Chinese during this time could not have been easy. CCH founder, actress, and activist said that all women of color are activists, whether they accept the role or not. This is 1944. Women are supposed to keep house, raise the kids, and be subservient. There are exceptions, and Helen is one of them. She is talented in many areas, has lots of drive, and an entrepreneurial spirit that didn't fit her time. One of her biggest skills was always getting her way. Perhaps the skill was in response to survival during war times, or in response to an environment where minorities and women were not considered equal. So rather than shrink from confrontation, Mom would face it. It was perhaps her way of equaling the playing field in an unequal setting, applied liberally, of course, to anything that annoyed her. My mom went with the theme that it's good to be strong, it's good to take risks, it's right to break with tradition. And these are some of the friends. This is my dad's third grade teacher that we continue to see. So one of the earliest things she did was opened a store called Yu Gifts. And I had no idea how they got the money to open the store in the heart of Pittsburgh. But first she had a small card table at a corset shop where she sold Chinese figurines on a card table. And later, as business increased, they moved to the storefront. Business was good, and as you might be able to guess, Helen was a very persuasive salesperson. She was able to tap into the Christmas market, the clothing market, and had jewelry from all over the world. And these are just pictures of her and my dad in the store. She had fashion shows. So some of these pictures are kind of faded, but you can see all the things that she did. And this picture was, or this article was from the Pittsburgh paper when she got her citizenship in 1955. There's pictures of all the family friends. And look who's right there in the second from the right happens to be in this room too. So hello, Ed. And Helen had her talent as a watercolor artist. She never gave up on her painting and teaching others, and she taught painting in Chinese schools at art festivals and continued to produce works well into her 80s. And these are some of her paintings and sketches. Then, of course, they opened 2 restaurants. There was the Golden Dragon restaurant and then the Quinlock restaurant. And she had the marvelous ability to sew. She knitted, she crocheted, she did just about everything that you could think of. And she was also featured in the local newspapers during Chinese New Year's with Chinese food recipes. And I don't remember how my mother became interested in the Chinese American Republican Club of Pittsburgh, but she did, and she became a staunch supporter of George H.W. Bush especially. And the story she likes to tell is that that Jeb Bush really liked my sister, but Linda never returned his call. Now Linda's having to run for office on her own as a township supervisor, as a Yu, and not as a Bush. So I guess that's a good thing. And Mom and Dad went to the inauguration. I guess this is the 81 inauguration of Ronald Reagan. So looking back, I see times of struggle within my mother, in between times when there was a storefront. Mom was a suburban housewife cut off with being able to use her talents. And I don't know if it was depression or a combination of restless soul that she seemed unhappy at times. And as an Asian American woman, I know I have faced the subtle microaggressions in society where sometimes you know that you are not exactly treated as an equal. And I think back about how difficult it must have been for her trying to fit in and make friends and taking care of 4 children and their many needs in white suburbia after the life she lived. Mother grew up without a mother, so I think sometimes it was hard for her to know what to do with us. As she was always there for us, we were always there for her. And in the end, she moved to California to be near my brothers and her grandchildren out there, and she found great joy in that. And she especially found great joy in bringing her sister and brother here from China to the United States and their families. And that was one of her last pictures. She was still playing ping pong the week before she died. So I don't know if you know the artist Milk. Her name is, she's a Chinese American artist named Connie Lim. And this is what she says. More and more studies are being published to show that trauma gets passed down from generation to generation through our DNA. So when I go gentler on myself, I'm expressing empathy towards my ancestors. When I allow myself to feel joy, I'm expressing gratitude to all the obstacles that my great-grandmother and her mother had to overcome. With each moment we decide to love ourselves better, we are creating a micro-revolution within our lineage, breaking away from the chains of pain. And Mary Oliver, one of my favorite poets, essentially says the same thing. And it's called Don't Hesitate. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate, give into it. There's plenty of lives and whole towns to be destroyed. We are not wise and we're not kind, and much of it cannot be redeemed. Still, life has possibilities. Perhaps this is the way of fighting back, and sometimes something happens better than all the riches and all the power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you'll notice in an instant when love begins. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb. I think about Mom's spirit within me, my siblings, and her grandchildren, and with that, her strength, character, and resolve. People have complicated, messy lives, and it's okay to make mistakes. Just keep finding the joy. Mom might be saying to me now, Susie, my life was more complicated than you ever knew. And now I can say, Mom, I now understand so much more. Thank you.
So Susan, thank you for that very poignant personal reflection. We have time for one or two questions. Does anyone have a question for Susan? Yes, Rose. Where is your father from? Question is where your father from. We can use the mic, Susan.
He actually was from Lobaksan, China, but he came with his father when he was 10 years old in 1929. So, and what he did was he was here, and then he decided to go back in 1939 to work on the Burma Road through the Lend-Lease program that was started by Madam Chen Kai-shek.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to introduce our last but not least speaker, Jenny Gong. So Jenny arrived